tonight. As we're coming into the studio, Chelsea Football Club, playing at home at the Stamford Bridge in London, are down by 2-0 from the German champions Bayern Munich. That's a very, very bad scoreline for Chelsea. Losing the 1/16th stage of the Champions League at home at the Stamford Bridge should be quite devastating. Away in Italy, in Naples, Napoli took a lead against Barca, but yes, Barca have come back and is 1-1 now in Napoli in the first leg of the 1/16th stage of the Champions League. The next stage is the quarter-final, so we'll keep an eye on that between now and 9:45 when the games end, and we'll tell you what has happened. In the studio, we have a big story to tell. We have a big narration to listen to, and Mr. Ramond Archer, who is also a journalist and a business owner, came up in the news over the last 2 weeks, as you know. The government of Ghana, pursuant to its policy to redevelop the trade fair, had an encounter with Mr. Archer, some in court and some on the field. The one that was widely reported was what was thought to be a demolition of his factory at the trade fair site on a Sunday night. Last week, the authorities of the trade fair in the studio, represented by its chairman, Mr. Daniel Macaulay, explained the circumstances of the matter. Tonight, by the demand of our viewers, Ramond Archer is in the studio to sort of give us a side of the story. We'll be asking him whether he actually possesses a valid lease to the trade fair land, and we will ask him to give us a better narration, indicating better and further particulars. The controversial issues about this matter is that he said that his factory is 10 million United States dollar worth and that equipment in his factory had been pulled down. When we spoke to Mr. Macaulay in the studio, among other things, he told us that equipment of Ramond Archer's factory were not destroyed in the demolition, that it was only the roof that was ripped off. Tonight, we'll get into the details of that. Also, I have a letter in front of me here supplied to us by our researchers, which has Ramond Archer of Color Planet writing to the Trade Fair Authority, indicating some epochal events that had occurred and that were to occur as far as his business relationship with the trade fair is concerned. We do also have the court ruling here, which I had read to Mr. Macaulay the other day about that. In doing so tonight, we want to establish that the Ghanaian business has not been affected the way it shouldn't be. That's what we'll try to establish, and I'm sure that you, our viewers, will help us ask the right questions. So that's our big show for tonight. If you're watching Champions League, forget it. Chelsea are losing. Come to Good Evening Ghana, where we are all winners here. We will all be winners here on Good Evening Ghana. So come to the win-win situation and forget about Chelsea, because they are losing at the Stamford Bridge. Okay. Yesterday was the 24th February, or 24th of February, and it represents an important day in the calendar of this country. 24th February is the day on which 41 years ago, the first military coup d'etat occurred in Ghana to overthrow President Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who is the first president of this republic. Not just the first president, but the most heroic of our presidents, given that he was the one who led the independence victory here in Ghana. So it was eventful. Tonight we'll have to comment on this because of the character of our program. We are a political current affairs program, and we are also a program that is interested in the history of the politics of our country. We are going to put this, this conversation in context, and we are going to talk about the seeds of a divided nation. We are going to say how the seeds of the divided nation were sown. And so we want to make a short statement about 24th February, which is now 41 years old, the day on which Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown. Those of you who may be young, who didn't read it, and who are hearing it for the first time, we'll give you some details of how this occurred, and then you can make your own conclusions. For the first time tonight, we are going to introduce something to the Ghanaian public that I think many people have not seen. It's about this book. Now, this book, which will give you the details, is written by General Afrifa, and is entitled The Ghana Coup. It's The Ghana Coup, 24th February 1966. It's written by General Afrifa, and for the first time, we're going to talk about the contents of this one. We also have to remember that whilst we don't have the book in the studio, Dr. Nkrumah also wrote about the coup, and the book he wrote is entitled The Dark Days in Ghana. And in The Dark Days in Ghana, he dedicated the coup to the then military general, General Bawa, who was slain, unfortunately, during this military intervention. He dedicated it also to Lieutenant Arthur and Lieutenant Moses Yeboah. Now, who is Lieutenant Arthur and who is Lieutenant Moses Yeboah? These were two young men who felt so concerned about the overthrow of Nkrumah that they staged a military coup, an abortive one even though it turned out to be, but they staged a military coup to restore the presidency of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And he dedicated his book, The Dark Days in Ghana, and you should find it if you're a student or if you're a journalist, you should find it. The Dark Days in Ghana, to the General Bawa, Lieutenant Arthur and Moses Yeboah, And all Ghanaians, as Nkrumah wrote, and I'm quoting him verbatim, he dedicated the book to these generals and these lieutenants, and all Ghanaians who were killed or maimed as they resisted what he described as the traitors of 24th February. Next time I'll get you that book. That's what Nkrumah dedicated the book to. This was a counter book that was written by General Afrifa, and tonight we'll get into it. Let us begin, though, with refreshing your memories of a video that we have shown before. But this is how the Nkrumah coup was announced to the world 41 years ago.
Spectacular overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah, and jubilant crowds celebrate his downfall in the streets of Accra. The military coup in Ghana is the 7th successful revolt in Africa in 9 months. But none of the ousted governments have survived as long as Kwame Nkrumah.
Never got as far as Hanoi. It was on arrival in Peking that Chinese leaders broke the news to Nkrumah of his downfall. Mystery surrounded his immediate plans. Conflicting reports said he was going back to Accra, that he was going to Cairo, that he'd gone to Addis Ababa to appeal to the current Conference of African States. In the end, he flew to Moscow on the way to Guinea. But even the Russians were expected to recognize the new regime. General Arthur Ankara, father of 22 and former mission school teacher, a man who's never concealed his dislike of Nkrumah. Before dealing with Mr. Amir, he had more important business.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to introduce my colleagues to you, some of the members of the National Liberation Council. As you've already been told, I need no introduction myself. But on my left here is the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Halley, who is the Deputy Chairman of the National Liberation Council. On my right is Major General E.K. Kotoka, who is the second member or the first member of the National Liberation Council. We have called you here this morning for one specific reason, and that is you heard the name of one Amuhia who has associated himself with this coup and had published himself in the British papers and most of the papers that is the brain behind it. And we want to prove that we were not instigated by anybody, neither we want to refute any allegation that ACA or God knows what has instigated us to carry out this coup. This coup was carried out completely because of the things that had happened in Ghana and because of the tyranny and the populism of Kwame Nkrumah, the deposed president. Everybody in Ghana was fed up with it. And therefore you could see the spontaneous result which followed the coup. You would have seen when you were coming probably thinking that Ghana would have been put under curfew or all other things, but nothing was done. There was no brain behind it. It was work from us and from within, without the aid of anybody, any foreign country or any country. It has been some of these things in Ghana that when a ruler is useless, you depose him. And therefore, we have deposed Kwame Nkrumah. We don't want tyranny or anything there.
Welcome back. And I have to make a correction. It's not 41 years ago. It's actually 54 years ago. So those of you who were born on that day, you were 54 yesterday. Those who were born later, some of you are 50, 41, and 36. But it's 54 years ago, this event that we are talking about. So you saw the announcement of the coup. This was the announcement of the coup. There was wide-range controversy about the orchestration of this coup against the Osagefo. It was widely believed in some quarters that the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States had actually orchestrated this coup d'etat against Osagefo because he was becoming a thorn in their flesh. President Nkrumah at that time had gained international stature as being a leader of the black people, as being a leader of the entire Pan-African race, and he was thought to be the father of Pan-Africanism in spite of the existence of other people from the United States. Dr. Nkrumah championed Pan-Africanism at the United Nations level and at all levels. He was a very respected leader across the world, and the level of his image in the world is yet to be surpassed by any African leader. At the time that he was overthrown, President Nkrumah had been invited by the United Nations to negotiate between the United States and Vietnam in a major war that had occurred in that part of the world. That will never happen in this era, where an African leader will be asked to negotiate between the United States Armed Forces and its president and another country against whom the United States were the aggressors. President Nkrumah had been nominated by the United Nations and accepted by both the Americans and the Vietnamese to be the principal negotiator. He was out on the strip when the coup occurred. Many years later, though, a CIA official talks about whether or not the CIA was part of this coup d'etat. Let's hear him. This is what he said.
Howard Bain, who was the CIA station chief in Accra, engineered the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah. Now, obviously, you can look at it different ways. A Ghanaian might say, I thought we did it. Inside the CIA, though, it was quite clear Howard Bain got a double promotion and the intelligence star for having overthrown Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana. The magic of it, what made it so exciting to the CIA, was that Howard Bain had had enough imagination and drive to run the operation without ever documenting what he was doing, and to sweep along his bosses in such a way they knew what he was doing, tacitly they approved, but there wasn't one shred of paper that he generated that would nail the CIA hierarchy as being responsible.
I think we should listen to that again. It's only 39 seconds. This interview you're seeing is in the 1980s, and many years later after the fact, somebody close to the CIA is talking about how the coup occurred. Let's hear him again.
Howard Bain, who was the CIA station chief in Accra, engineered the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah. Now, obviously, you can look at it different ways. A Ghanaian might say, I thought we did it. Inside the CIA, though, it was quite clear Howard Bain got a double promotion and the intelligence star for having overthrown Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana. The magic of it, what made it so exciting to the CIA, was that Howard Bain had had enough imagination and drive to run the operation without ever documenting what he was doing, and to sweep along his bosses in such a way they knew what he was doing, tacitly they approved, but there wasn't one shred of paper that he generated that would nail the CIA hierarchy as being responsible.
The CIA. So, viewers, you can make your own decisions whether the CIA was involved or not. But why, how and why was this coup justifiable, even though perhaps people had ulterior motives for the coup d'etat? President Nkrumah had become the Prime Minister of Ghana, or leader of government business, after winning a parliamentary election in 1951. And I say parliamentary election as opposed to a presidential election. We can talk about that later on. And then he again won a parliamentary election. He was member of parliament, by the way, for the Ododo-Diodio constituency. What we now call Ododo-Diodio was called the Accra Main constituency, and Nkrumah was a member of parliament. So those of you who live in that area, once upon a time, your MP was a very, very famous man. I'm sure your MP today is also a famous man, but you had ever been represented by the Osage for himself. He was a member of parliament for Accra Main, and he had won the election on the ticket of the CPP in 1951 and in 1954. In 1956, another election was orchestrated by the opposition then to determine the roadmap for independence. The CPP again won that election in 1956, and so in 1957, Kwame Nkrumah, as Prime Minister of Ghana, led Ghana to independence. Then in 1960, the Osage decided to amend the constitution. So in 1957, or in 1956, a parliament had been elected in Ghana, which parliament was led by the CPP, and which parliament created the independence government of the Osage-fo. In 1960, he decided to become a presidential, to convert Ghana into a presidential system. Mind you, the Osage-fo had trained for many years in the United States, and so he was more accustomed to the presidential system of government than the parliamentary. He did some training in the UK as well, but he seemed not to like the kind of dialogue, that frontal dialogue that occurred in Parliament with the opposition. He wanted a better free hand to rule, because he was a visionary and he wanted to drive his African unity agenda without inhibition. So he was not very excited about the parliamentary system of government that brought too many checks and balances onto the Prime Minister and onto the government. So he wanted a presidential system of government. So in 1960, we got a presidential system of government. He purported to conduct election by a plebiscite then to become president. So the election was run in different parts of the country at different times in 1960. The constitution of the time said that in 1965, there will be another election. So the parliament that had been elected in 1956 were the people who created the presidential system in 1960. The plebiscite was conducted in Accra, in the Middle Belt, and in the northern Ghana on different times and different days. Dr. Nkrumah was reported to have defeated Dr. J.B. Dankwa to become the first president under that constitution of 1960. Elections were due in 1965. But by 1963, some of the members of the CPP themselves had to run away from Ghana, from Parliament. So the Parliament of 1957 had been depleted in numbers. So there were empty seats in Parliament, and one of them, famously, was the seat of Komla Gbedema, who was a member of Parliament for the Southern Volta constituency. Komla Gbedema had departed the Parliament and had run away from Ghana. He had become a dissident exile because he was scared for his life because he had criticized the Osagefo. Such was the atmosphere in Ghana around 1963, 1964. Everyone was looking forward to the 1965 election, which then will give Ghanaians the opportunity, if they wanted to vote the CPP out of office. But almost every political opponent of the Osagefo had been imprisoned under what was called the obnoxious PDA, Preventive Detention Act, was introduced in 1958 to sort of get people who were unhappy with the government into prison so that the government will continue. That was the philosophy of the PDA. But eventually it was used against political opponents in the opposition, and it was used against political opponents in the CPP. This was the atmosphere that sort of governed the country around that time, that even CPP members had to leave the country. And so everyone was looking forward to the 1965 election. And what happened? In 1964, Dr. Nkrumah and the Parliament passed a bill to make Ghana a one-party state, to say that the 1965 election was no longer necessary. It will not be conducted. If at all it will be conducted only by members of Parliament with a voice vote to make a determination whether Kwame Nkrumah should continue to be the president or not. So the 1965 election was called off. In 1964, Ghana was turned into a one-party state, and that was the state of affairs. And Nkrumah governed the country with an iron hand, and all of those things happened. It is regrettable that these things happen, but tonight I'm talking about sowing the seeds of a divided nation. And I'll roll it out very quickly so you can understand where we are. I'm going to land again on Flight Lieutenant Rawlings' activities in 1981. Forgive me for that, but it's also a very important part of the epochal occurrences in this country and which has brought us to where we are. And we are not learning any lesson. We are still killing each other, and we're using political power in a way as if political power will never end. But political power ends and new political power comes, and we use it the way against the opponent, and we continue to do that. And that has to stop. We've said that all the time. The new generation is not going to allow that to happen. If we don't have to have an election, and we have to have a social revolution so that this country can come back to standard, we will do that. And I think that the politicians must be listening and listening wildly. If you have been listening to radio over the last 2 days or something, you can see the anger of people about all of this get fund, NPP take, NDC take, and the politicians seems to be taking us for a ride. Whilst they use the political power with an iron hand, always to find political opponents, etc., etc. It started from a long time ago, and it has to stop at some point. Tonight, I'm just bringing you the history, taking the advantage of 24th February to just relay the history to you, so that as a young person, you can see where we have come from. It will make you understand some things better. So 1965, this was the situation. So when 1966 came, early 1966, and the soldiers took out the gun and overthrew Nkrumah, much as it was a regrettable incident, this is the circumstances under which it occurred. And that's why tonight I've pulled out a Free First book so that we understand what he said. Let's have a look at the Free First book now. So this is the book. It's entitled The Ghana Coup. It is The Ghana Coup, 24th February 1966. It's written by Akwesi Amankwa Afrifa, colonel at that time as he then was. Later on, he became a general, and he played a very important role in the politics of this country. So let's go to chapter 1 of the book, and here is the story according to Afrifa. And it goes as follows. He said, a coup d'etat, and this is very important. This is the man who organized the coup and who is writing. Apart from him, no other person who organized the coup has written a book about the coup. It might be necessary for us to see that. Rawlings has killed some of them, but he is alive. Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, former president, has actually killed some of them, but he's alive, and maybe he may have to render an account of what happened on June 4th and 31st. We understand that he's writing a book, he should be in, but this is a Free First account. He says, a coup d'etat is the last resort in the range of means whereby an unpopular government may be overthrown. But in our case, where there were no constitutional means of offering a political opposition to the one-party government, the armed forces were automatically made to become the official opposition of the government. This may also be true of other one-party states on the continent of Africa. There is ample justification for our moves on 23rd of February, 1966. And when the operation commenced, we had no doubt in our minds as to the justness of our cause. This conviction gave us the additional courage to carry the exercise through at all costs, and if the worst came to the worst, to fight a civil war and stand our ground until the Nkrumah government was overthrown. Let's pause there. This is what Afrifa is writing. Very, very strong words. But I'm just saying that the circumstances of the government at the time allowed Afrifa to write these words. One-party states, 1965 election cancelled, Nkrumah could not be challenged, political opponents had left the parliament and gone abroad, K. Buzia, all of them, Joe Appiah, Victor Owusu, they had all run away from parliament, vacated their seats and gone out of the country because they were afraid that they would be jailed because J.B. Dankwa, their boss, was already in prison. And Nkrumah's own people, notably Finance Minister Komlak Bedema, left the country as well. So these events allowed Colonel Afrifa to write these words that he has written. Let's finalize. He says in the last paragraph, he said, we contemplated a possible division in the armed forces and had plans to deal with such a situation because some of the armed forces were still very loyal to Nkrumah. I'm not reading anymore. Let's end that situation. I'm just saying that Afrifa is saying this division in the armed forces, that they contemplated it because some of the people, the armed forces, were very loyal to the Osajefo, especially his own battalion. It was called the Osajefo's Own Guard, and it was led by General Bauer. We'll talk about General Bauer later on. This did not happen, and Afrifa, that's what Afrifa says, that a division did not happen. When the aim of the operation became known on the 24th, we had the fullest support and cooperation of all ranks of the armed forces, including officers and men of the President's Own Guard regiments. Now, this President's Own Guard regiments, they call them the POGR. They were the people who were most loyal to the Osage. For the Afrifa's account says that they actually supported the coup. He goes on, the troops in Accra, okay, move on to, yeah, okay. So from where the tick is, it's the last paragraph. It says, he's talking about, okay, let's start from Colonel Kotoka. So you can see there, Colonel Kotoka and I met the troops between Ejura and Atebubu at 12 hours. And there I was left in the command while he proceeded to Accra to confirm to Mr. Harley and Brigadier Okran that the exercise was going ahead. It is a 237 miles from Tamale to Kumasi and 186 from Kumasi to Accra. Our HR, that is the time at which the exercise was to be changed into an operation, was 4:00 hours, that's early in the morning, 24th February. This meant that we had to move fast and slightly above the normal convoy pace. In all, some 35 vehicles were involved. Meanwhile, Major Koka Appiah, my trusted colleague from Sandhurst, had been assigned responsibility for the arrest of the Director of Military Intelligence. Now, Afrifa is giving the account of the coup, and I recommend the book to you. We don't need to give all that account. Let's come here and the final one. He says, just before 6 o'clock, Colonel Kotoka arrived at the radio station. This will be Ghana Broadcasting Corporation in Accra, in Kanda. He shook my hand and said, well done, Akwesi. Let's take that again. That's quite dramatic, isn't it? Just before 6 o'clock, Colonel Kotoka, this Colonel Kotoka we talk about is the one after whom the Kotoka International Airport is named. So those of you who are young who don't know, this Colonel Kotoka that is orchestrating this coup and congratulating people is the gentleman after whom the airport is named. So it says, just before 6 o'clock, Colonel Kotoka arrived at the radio station. He shook my hand and said, well done, Akwesi. He then went on air and in these words told the nation what had happened. And I quote, fellow citizens of Ghana, I have come to inform you that the military, in cooperation with the Ghana police, have taken over the government of Ghana. So that's the story. That's how Afrifa put it. That's the story. And it's an interesting story because soon after that, then there's a counter coup to restore Nkrumah. The restoration doesn't happen. and the coup people are arrested, and it is them that Nkrumah dedicates his book to. So the Osajefo is out of town. He's on a very important international assignment about which Ghana should be proud, and the soldiers and the policemen going to overthrow him. But I've already given you the circumstances under which this occurred. Now, what happens next? Afrifa and his people, true to their word, decide to organize election. This is the first thing, the first mistake, the first political error, maybe the second, but it's a major, major political error that set our country onto retributions and reprivations and up to where we are today. When the election was called, after the coup people were there for 3 years, and they called an election in 1969. When the election was called, there was a decree to ban the Osajefo himself and the CPP from competing in that election. So clearly, it was not transparent, it was unfair, it was manipulating the process. Now, if that had not happened, the history of Ghana would have been completely different, and it would have been a much more positive history. If the UP people, the Busia and Dankwa people who took over, had allowed the CPP to contest the election of 1969, had allowed them freely to contest. In fact, even people like Komlak Benema who wanted to contest the election, some CPP people, they were banned. Nkrumah was still available. He was in Guinea. He would have been happy to come to Ghana and contest the election, and he probably would have won his parliamentary seat. He would have come to parliament. If the CPP didn't win, he would have come on the side of the opposition benches. Imagine Kwame Nkrumah on the side of the opposition benches in Ghana, and Busia as prime minister. If the UP had won, that would have been the beauty of democracy that would have been established in Ghana long ago in 1969. All of these military people would not have come. So the videos you see here is the people preparing for the election of 1969. The major thing about that election was that the CPP was banned. The record and posterity is telling them, and I was not born in 1969, so I'm part of the posterity. And we are telling them that this should not have happened. This was a major error. So when they say posterity judges, this is what it is. All the people in Ghana who took that decision, they have sent our country back. The decision that the CPP should not compete in the 69 election. Nkrumah had been overthrown. He's gone abroad. His party had been overthrown. A new election was being called. And the CPP had contested election in Ghana since 1951, 51, 54, 56, 1960. So the CPP was an important political party in Ghana. But here they were. They decided that the CPP cannot compete in elections. So what do you have? You have only one party. So there are two parties. So it's like one day there's something happens and they said MPP cannot contest the election, only NDC can. Or NDC cannot contest the election, only MPP can. That's what happened at the time. Just one party contesting the election as it turned out. Well, there were some smaller parties, but they were insignificant because they didn't have the trajectory of history of having been there from 1951, 54, 56, and 1960. So this is what happened. It was a major blow where they said the CPP shouldn't contest the election. So Prime Minister Busia and his party won an overwhelming majority, almost like a one-party state. And this was the swearing in of Professor Busia. Have a look at it. Colonel Afrifa is the one who is doing the swearing in. Have a look. It's going to come soon.
My Lord Chief Justice, Commissioners, Nananum, Your Excellencies, Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, we present to you Dr. Kofi Abrefa Busia, by the grace of God, Prime Minister of the Second Republic of Ghana, and request all manner of persons to recognize and acknowledge him as such. I now request the Chief of State to read the instrument appointing Dr. Busia as Prime Minister.
Presidential Commission, who wrote the book. And the man who spoke in the Busia, swearing in Busia, is the one whose book we read. He's called Akwesi Amankwa Afrifa. He ended up as a major general, but at that time he wrote the book. He was a colonel. And he's the one who lifted up the hands of Prime Minister Busia in a one-sided election that Busia comfortably won and raised his hand. So by the time the Busia government took over, there were whisperings, because human beings are like that. And as it says, inalienable rights. The right for us to participate was curtailed. And so there were elements within the Ghana state who felt that this prime minister is not a legitimate prime minister because he didn't allow everyone to compete the election. That's very important. Allowing people to contest, to express their views, to pick their forms, and to contest is very, very important in building a democratic society, because whatever you establish, it will be broken if it is not on the basis of transparency, independence, accuracy, freedom, etc. All of those tenets of democracy. If you don't have those tenets, those are rights that God has given man, and so they call it inalienable. So it's in man, and man will always fight for it, even at the peril of his life. So by the time the Busia government was established, whether Afrifa was holding a gun, he was wearing the military thing, red, as you saw it, and he raised Busia's hand and says everybody should recognize him as such, that is legal, but it is illegitimate. In the context of political science, that's an illegitimate government. They lack political legitimacy. They may get legal legitimacy because the processes have gone through, they've written it down, but they lack political legitimacy. And a government that lacks political legitimacy will be broken down. And that was the error. So what happened? Few weeks, few days, few years later, the Achampong government came and they threw the Busia government away because all the Nkrumah elements, and mind you, Kwame Nkrumah had been ruling the country from 1951 up to, that's a photograph of Kutu Achampong. Nkrumah had been ruling the government from 1951 up to 1966. So here is a man who had dominated the socio-political space of the government. He definitely had his people. He had his people in there. And he had his people in the military. He had been commissioning Ghana Armed Forces officers all the time. And Nkrumah had his people in the military. He had his people in the civil service. So as soon as the Busia government arrived, all the Nkrumah elements began to construct and constitute themselves into an opposition to the Busia government. And Nkrumah was still alive. He was writing letters to them. And he was talking about the lack of democracy in the electoral process. And every student of political science would agree that that election, excluding a major political party like the CPP by law and by power, was not right. So, okay, the Busia government was overthrown. So we set the agenda like that. So when the Busia government was overthrown, the announcement was made that the Nkrumah people were coming back. So the Nkrumah elements, Kojo Chikata, Kutu Achampong, Major Selome, they were the Nkrumah elements in the armed forces. And they organized the coup. And then Achampong became president. So the Second Republic was overthrown. Second Republic was a government of really skilled young men that if the government had been allowed to be there, we would have had a lot. Ghana's history would have been different if the coup of the Second Republic didn't occur. I mean, the coup against the Second Republic, if it didn't occur, Ghana would have been a different country. It would have been a much better country. These are some of the major mistakes that our forebears made, our forefathers made, that we should try and not make them today. So when we see them coming, we should speak against them. We should fight against them. We should resist against them, because these are the things that have messed up our country before we were born. If the 1969 election had occurred in a different way, Ghana's history would have charted a completely different positive course. If the Achampong coup had not occurred, Ghana's history would have been different. But Achampong coup occurred, it was a response to something. So Achampong's coup occurred. Achampong ruled Ghana until 1979. Sometime in 1978, he was overthrown by a palace coup. Now, the soldiers were not trained to rule. So their first few years was excellent because, as it is reported, they were taking leaves from the Achampong, from the manifesto of the Progress Party. And they were implementing things about the Progress Party, including the Operation Feed Yourself, a beautiful agricultural policy. It's like planting for food and jobs, but it was called Operation Feed Yourself. It was very successful, the most successful in Africa. In 1975, Ghana refused an IMF loan because we didn't need it. That's the record. You can ask Kwame P&M, he'll tell you. Ghana refused an IMF loan because we didn't need it. Because these guys were borrowing from the manifesto of clever people. But the soldiers were not trained to rule. So after the manifesto expired, because the manifesto was written for one term, by the way. So after the elements of the manifesto expired, the soldiers now had to create their own agenda. And from 1975, Ghana began to go down. Down and down and down until 1978, when the soldiers felt that they themselves needed to do something. So they overthrew Achampong and brought in General Akufu. Nothing happened. Fly Lieutenant Rawlings came in 79. The executions occurred. And then there was an election. So in this election, the Nkrumahs came back. So you see, this is why I'm worried about the role of Fly Lieutenant Rawlings. Because this 79 election was to sort of reconcile everything that had happened. In fact, JJ himself said that the June 4th coup was a coup to end all coups. That's what he said. That on June 4th, when he came to do the military, what he called the military mutiny, it was a mutiny to end all coups. And it was true. By the time he finished, he had cleaned out the house, the soldiers had gone back to barracks, an election had been contested till today. Every political observer believes that the 1979 election was the cleanest election ever to have been contested in Africa. Forget about Mandela's 1994 election. That 79 election was hotly contested, very, very hotly contested. The results were released. Everyone accepted it because the election was clean. Why? Because it was supervised by the soldiers, who at that time had gained their image back. They didn't want their image to go down. So the soldiers supervised the election and made sure that every ballot, every vote was counted and everything went on well. And this was the election that the Nkrumahs had been allowed to come back to participate. The UP guys had been allowed to come back to participate. And then Nkrumah's party won. Dr. Liman won the election on the second round. Very beautiful contest. So after that, Ghana was set out to reconcile itself and continue. And bam, 31st December came. Fly Lieutenant Rawlings came back over his own ambition to overthrow the Liman administration. For whatever reason, there was no basis for that coup. And that has also set us back. So he comes in with the coup. He comes in and judges are killed. The retribution continues. Nkrumah is passed here. Danko Abuzia is passed here. In 1992, he comes. He sets up political parties. And it continues and continues till now. But we have a responsibility. We're taking the story from 24th February. We have a responsibility now as young people who are watching me that all of these things must stop now. It can stop now. After all, the NDC have had their turn in power. The NPP have had their turn in power. So nobody is a loser. We can't have retributions. We can't have political power being used against individuals and political opponents. We must speak against that. We must stop that. I'll leave it here. And that's my long sermon for tonight. What happened in football? Can I get the scores? And then, so what happened in the Chelsea game? Can you tell me? Bayern Munich is reported to have beaten our Chelsea by 3-0 at the Stamford Bridge. Very, very bad scoreline for Chelsea. And Barcelona and Napoli drew 1-1. That's not too important to Ghanaians. The Chelsea one is important. Chelsea lost by 3-0. Sorry about that. Ramond Archer is in the studio to give us a counterclaim, because last week we hosted a Trade Fair Authority led by its chairman, and they gave their expressions about what actually happened. They regretted the incidents. Mr. Macaulay, Dr. Macaulay, I should say, actually said he had spoken to Ramond Archer. There's a court document here upon which the demolitions were done. We'll go into it. And there are letters here with Color Planet, etc., etc. After the break, Good Evening Ghana is live. Ramond Archer is my guest. Send your questions to Good Evening Ghana Official. Stay tuned.
My name is Fifi Roxon, aka Azeman, aka forget about dough. The time here say self line they can't tell you bet. We are make what I go tell me. But as I talk my party say I won't put internet for my taxi inside. They don't understand. Some they laugh me, some they say I rush now. But no ball. And the boy never the sports. But now they get all the dropping for the station. Every passenger won't enter my taxi. Because once you enter bed, you feel connected to the Wi-Fi and you will get free fast 4G internet from Selfline. Massa, it no be easy. Even in traffic, passengers know the ball. Sometimes if it take me dropping so roaming because of internet. Massa, Selfline in your life.
Surfline, it's about time.
There is 1 million excitement in the air, and Sapper just tapped into the mood with his share of waste bin from the 1 million waste bin project.
1 million waste bin project?
It is a nationwide social intervention project aimed at helping improve the lives of people by correcting poor sanitation practices and improving solid waste collection service delivery in Ghana by providing 1 million radio frequency identity tagged free waste bins.
Radio frequency identity tagged waste bins? This will enable monitoring of how often the waste bins are emptied in real time. Wow!
From your homes, offices, schools, hospitals, right through to places of worship. Yeah, baby.
How and where do I sign on?
Our branded registration and distribution officials will come along with their ID cards to register and distribute waste bins to all households. Just provide them with your name, contact number, house number, and digital address. Once signed on, you'll be introduced to your zone's designated waste collection service provider who will collect your waste on agreed days of the week.
Wait, is it free?
Yes, of course. The waste bins are free. You would, however, be required to pay a token as a registration fee at the point of registration and a monthly subscription fee as communicated by your service provider. Payment for such services can be done through mobile cash payments, short code *887*87# or through all Ecobank branches and payment platforms nationwide.
Oh my God, this is already getting exciting.
Yes, bro. With the 1 million waste bin project, you would enjoy improved solid waste collection, easy access to complaint services, quick response to complaint, easy and convenient means of payment.
What am I waiting for?
What are you waiting for? Get ready to grab your free share of waste bins now.
Entertainment just got better and exciting. Metro TV is now on 2C TV. Enjoy your favorite shows, movies, news, documentaries, sport, music videos and many more anywhere, anytime. Watch Metro TV all over the world no matter where you are. Europe, America, Asia, Middle East, all on 2C TV. Just download the app on your mobile device and enjoy everything on Metro TV on 2C TV. 2C TV, absolute freedom.
You see, honestly, this is so difficult. Why can't you people just make us stars without wanting to take advantage of us?
And you also would die, sir, law needs that school any other day because M1
$20,000 US contract signed, sealed.
Are you mad?
So I should worship you because you introduced me to this thing.
It is written in the Bible that heaven will help those who help themselves.
This time you block my way again. Hey, I'm gonna light you up straight.
In fact, all the packages.
Ghana Actors Union. Is there anything like that in this country?
I have told you times with that number that I want to marry a superstar. I want to marry somebody that is famous.
Prince Arinde, you must marry Princess Abigail. The gods have spoken.
When the news breaks, if it's complex, we break it down.
Nowadays, it's not easy to have 3 men in a day in Ghana here. Then maybe you are a drug dealer.
From politics through business to social issues that matter to you.
We are going to see some major changes in 2019.
Covering in depth a wide range of opinions.
Why did you take it to all of us? Are we cowards?
We amplify your voice and hold duty bearers to account.
We need traffic lights. We need street lights. We need them to work within 72 hours.
Metro News, the power to influence.
Welcome back. Thank you very much for your time. And Ramond Archer is here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chelsea got beaten 3-0 at the Stamford Bridge.
That's my team.
That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, unfortunate, but that's such is life.
I asked people to send me what should be the first question that I ask you tonight. And the question that people sent, it all resonates. They want to find out your lease, your relationship with the Trade Fair Authority, relating to your lease, your ability to be there, your right to be there. Do you have a valid lease at this time?
I thought people would want to know what happened.
Yes, we play that. We play the tape over and over again.
I've given you a couple of videos, so
we will show that. But we've already played the demolition video. We play that.
No, but that was when it was happening.
Yes.
But I heard McDonald here when he said that they only took off the roof.
I'll show that.
So the videos are there. Before the factory was demolished, after the factory was demolished, and even prior to the factory being demolished. So I hope that we get to show that.
We'll show that, no problem.
Now, Paul, I watched your show last week, and I cringed. I cringed because I worried that we had public office holders like McDonald, who even in the face of facts will sit in public and blatantly lie. Now,
what did he say that was
now?
true?
You see, he came to dangle a 2014 letter, which you read.
Yes,
here.
I read it, yes.
Now, that letter, you see, I've watched the trade fair, and I've kept quiet for so long, and I think they're tying a rope around their neck. The letter that you read was dated 2014,
yes,
right?
Yes, or 2012. We have it.
No, 2014. I have it here.
Okay.
Was dated 2014.
Yeah.
Signed by Mr. Poti, the then CEO of Ghana Trade Fair. And he said that was my lease. And he read the...
I read it.
Yeah, and you read the details of it. Now, Paul, I'm telling you, I didn't go to trade fair in 2014. I went to trade fair in 2010. My request for the plot that I occupy at Pavilion Y is here. April 5th, 2010 is when I went to the trade fair. At the time I went to trade fair, Puti was not even chief executive.
Okay, so what the 2014 letter about?
So it couldn't have been that my lease was 2014, signed by a man who was not even at the trade fair at the time I went to the trade fair.
So what's that letter about? The 2014
letter. The 2014 letter was a letter in respect of expansion. Mind you, I had been there since 2010. I needed to do expansion. One of the things I wanted to do was to build a warehouse. I heard McDan talking here that I was given permission only to build a warehouse. The warehouse is in a completely different location from where the factory is. So look at this scenario where we are talking about Pavilion Y, whose factory is completely demolished. Then Pavilion R, which I never even got to build.
Okay.
So he comes here to dangle a lease of a warehouse that after I paid the rent on, they never allowed me to even develop.
Who didn't allow you?
The chief executive.
Who? Which one?
Dr. Agnes Edu. When she came.
But you got it in 2014.
So
Agnes Edu came in
2017.
Yes.
So what happened was, and I can show you documents where I wrote to Trade Fair that I needed a warehouse and I needed to build it myself. So after I wrote the request for the expansion, they looked at it and they approved it. When they approved it, but they had containers on it.
They told you in the approval that you shouldn't spend money on it, in the one that I read.
So
because they were doing redevelopment.
So if you can let me finish.
Yeah.
So 2014, I wrote to them that I wanted to do expansion. Where my particular factory is, there's no space to do expansion. So they gave me Pavilion R. Pavilion R had plenty containers on it. And it turned out the containers belonged to a company called Horizon and Access Bank. So I wrote to Trade Fair that, look, the land that you have allocated to me, I can't develop it because there are containers on it. And I don't know the content of the containers, so I will not use my powers to go and remove that container. So I was telling them that please remove the containers
so
I can develop
so that
it.
the demolition, the land that was demolished has nothing to do with the letter that I read.
Absolutely.
Okay, but the
and
letter
that is why I thought it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous that I'm complaining about the demolition of my factory.
And they are talking about
Pavilion Y.
They are
talking about Pavilion R, which is bare land, never been developed.
But in that
How
letter,
can a land which was not developed be demolished?
Okay, but in that letter, the Trade Fair told you that you shouldn't invest because they were doing redevelopment.
That is after I have been there for 4 years.
Fair enough, but I'm saying that in that letter...
Does that make sense to you, Paul?
No, I understand that.
No,
I'm just trying to talk
does
about
it make sense
the
to you?
redevelopment is inherited by Agnes Edu. Because that letter said they were doing redevelopment.
Paul, we have to be careful when we say redevelopment was inherited by...
No, the letter, I can show it to you now. I have it here.
No, I'm saying we have to be...
that they are redeveloping.
We have to be careful, and I'm telling you this, because Agnes Edu has come to the Trade Fair to pursue her own redevelopment. The redevelopment that the previous government was doing was based on an international tender supervised by PricewaterhouseCoopers, which they have set aside.
Hold it there. But
so do you want to know that? So when we use the word inherited, we must be careful because that has been set aside.
Let me tell you why I'm using inherited. That redevelopment told you that you shouldn't invest. And that they will give you 1 month notice to move. And that if they demolish, they will not pay you compensation.
We're talking about a land which was not developed.
I understand, but the terms of that agreement seems to be what Agnes Edu inherited. One, that you shouldn't invest. Two, that if they wanted to demolish, they'll give you...
Let's get this straight. The plot you're talking about is Pavilion R.
Correct. Yeah.
I have no investment on Pavilion R as we speak.
I understand.
So why would I be talking about a demolition on that land?
No, I'm not talking about demolition. I'm talking about the terms of that contract. The terms they gave you.
Because the issue at stake is not whether or not I'm at Pavilion R. The issue at stake is whether or not my factory at Pavilion Y, which I built in 2010, has been demolished.
Yes, okay.
In one of the letters I wrote to Agnes,
hold on.
listen, just one second. I told her that if the trade fair knew that they wanted to, they didn't want permanent structures, they were going to develop the trade fair, they should have told me in 2010 and not 2014, after I have built the factory and I was operating for 4 years.
But the letter that gave you the power to build a warehouse told you about...
I didn't build the warehouse.
Yeah, you didn't. But
so
the letter...
No,
the letter told you it's clear. They told you that they were going to do redevelopment and that if they demolish, they will not pay you compensation.
Okay, so Paul,
but you didn't do it. I know that.
Paul, listen, I'm saying to you that I have my lease in 2010. My lease has nothing to do with don't put temporary structures, don't put we are going to develop, we are going to redevelop. My lease in 2010 has none of that.
Is that lease valid until when, the 2010 lease?
It was valid until this woman came in. He asked us to reapply because...
No, when you received it, how long was given to you? When you received the 2010 lease, what's the validation on it?
I'm saying that you're going with this. And I'm saying that land you're talking about, are you going to talk about the land?
No, I'm talking about the one that... Yes, that was the one I'm on now.
No, but you're still referring to this letter.
No, this letter is a different letter.
No,
what I'm holding now is a different letter.
I'm referring to the letter of last week.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about the
where Have you seen my lease?
Where they developed.
Have you seen
That's what I'm asking. What's the validation of the lease? How valid is it? From 2010 until when?
You see, that's what I'm telling you. When this woman came, she said we should renew. If there's no lease, how do you renew? Renew what?
But the lease is not indefinite. So I'm asking you that when you got it in 2010, it ends when?
When I went to trade fair, I said something very specific.
Sound. Oh, damn. Sorry. We have to pause a little bit. Let's pause a little bit and check the sound. I understand that viewers are having problems with the sound. It's very revealing conversation. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
When the news breaks, if it's complex, we break it down.
Nowadays, it's not easy to have 3 meals in a day in Ghana here. Then maybe you're a drug dealer.
From politics through business to social issues that matter to you.
We are going to see some major changes in 2019.
Covering in depth a wide range of opinions.
Why did they take all of us? Are we cowards?
We amplify your voice and hold duty bearers to account.
We need traffic lights. We need street lights. We need them to work with this 72 hours.
Metro News, the power to influence.
Sorry about that. We're back on air. This is going to be a very interesting conversation. And make sure you're making your notes and sending us the Facebook, sending us a message on Facebook. Mr. Ramond Archer.
Yes.
So the question to you is, you had a lease in 2010. Was it indefinite?
Yes.
Indefinite?
Yes.
Till forever?
Because, you know, when I went to the trade fair, I didn't rent the trade fair building. So, you know, the trade fair has three sections. They have the industrial side. It's where you find my factory. Yeah. You find Sanyo, you know, the old company Sanyo. You find the Association of Ghana Industry. They have a three or four-story building, and we are behind them. That's the industrial side. They have the exhibition side, which is where they have the pavilions. And I think the recreational side is at the other side. So when I built my when I went to the trade fair, unlike some people, I didn't rent the building, the trade fair building. So I was paying them what they called ground rent. So I built the factory from the scratch. I took the drawing and I told them I wanted to put up a print factory. Who puts up a print factory in a temporary structure?
No, so I'm interested in the lease. So the lease was for the land?
So the lease was for the land.
Indefinitely?
Yes. So they said they give you this land to build your factory, and that you pay rent every quarter. So every quarter we'll pay our rent to the trade fair. That was
the rent predetermined, or it was to be determined every quarter?
No, it was predetermined.
How many years?
As and when trade fair, trade fair is we have we have tenants association. So anytime there's any issue, if trade fair wanted to increase rent, or they will usually come together and we will talk about the rent and we will move on. So it was not a case of.
So since 2010 up to 2017, you
by
never.
the way, that's the factory before it was.
Yes,
before it was demolished.
This is the factory before it was demolished. Okay, so viewers, what you're seeing on now is the factory before it was demolished. Okay, we'll come to that. Let's settle on the lease, and then we'll show you the factory before it was demolished. We'll show you after it was demolished, and we'll show you the activity that goes on over there. So this is before it was demolished.
Before it was demolished, I took this video after the.
But you didn't cut the grass.
No, this is just at the back. If you looked from the beginning at the front.
Okay, all of this is at the back.
So this is the front. So you can see it's well manicured. The grass is well manicured.
Yeah.
So I took this video because while the injunction was pending, and I will show you in the other video called Roadblocks.
Okay.
The trade fair went even when I hear that we got the injunction lifted.
Okay, hold on. Let's deal with it. Let's come back to the studio. Let's deal with it. So 2010, you got the lease. You didn't get any letter from the trade fair for a renewal of the lease, except that every quarter you were paying rent.
Yes.
And sometimes the rent was reviewed upwards.
Yes.
Okay, and then 2017.
And this chief executive came in 2017 and asked for an increment of over 300%.
Of what?
In rent.
So the ground rent, the one that you pay every quarter.
Yes.
She asked for a 300% increment.
So the association got together and said, look, we need to go and sit down with. I mean, trade fair we're not like enemies. The association and the management always work together when there's an issue at stake. So the association got together and said, let's go and sit down with the chief executive so we can look at the situation of the rent. 300% was to some of the tenants unthinkable. So
was it to all tenants, everyone?
Yes.
Everyone, across board.
Across
so
board.
there was no particularization in this one?
No.
Okay.
So like I said, so we wanted to see the woman. She said she doesn't recognize the association. So
is she right to say that, or she said it?
She wouldn't meet us. She said she doesn't recognize us. So the association was left with no option than to petition rent control. So the case went to rent control. Rent control ruled that they wanted to come and do the measurement. You don't just increase rent the way you want. It is in a certain space. So they wanted to come and do the measurement and work with the trade fair to determine what the rent is supposed to be. She said she did not want to deal with the rent control. Then the rent control then said, under the circumstance, they came there to do the measurement, they sacked them. So then the rent control said, then we should forward the case to the magistrate court in Labadi. So that's how this matter gradually left the point of dialogue into the legal realm. So we went to the court with trade fair because the woman would not sit down. I wrote to her. No, but Magdan said she met all the parties. Is that untrue? You know, is it untrue? Absolutely untrue. I'll play the video for you. I have not. Look, I had Magdan here. No, he said the trade fair authority met all the parties. Let me tell you, we forced because no one wanted to. The meeting happened. No one wanted to go to court. Okay, so the meeting between you and Agnes Edu eventually happened. You mean the association? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Eventually, we pushed and pushed and pushed, and then they gave us one meeting. At that meeting, they told us, "Oh, this is a drawing we have made." Who was at the meeting? The chief executive was there. Madam Agnes Edu was there. Agnes Edu was there. They brought some consultants, some architects. They showed us a video of what the new trade fair was going to look like. Was the chairman there? Was Magdan? No, he wasn't. Okay. So it was like, this is it. You take it or you leave it. What does take it or leave it mean? We're not part of it. So I, at that meeting, told them. What happened to the 300% at that meeting? Was there a discussion about it? You know, at that time, it had gradually moved into the court. Okay. And everything was now becoming a litigation. So we thought the chance to meet with the management was good, so we could resolve most of the things. When we met, they said, oh, they would rather deal with us individually. I said at that meeting, we are all here. And we are here in the name of the association. Why don't we resolve any outstanding issue? No, we will deal with you individually, so we will come to you. I waited and waited. So how did this meeting end? It ended that the chief executives and the management said they will visit each of us, they will dialogue with us, and then based on our needs, they may include us in the redevelopment. So we're all very happy. But that's a good outcome. That was a good outcome. That's all we wanted. Then after the meeting, I had some people met with the chief executive. So we never got the chance. A lot of the tenants never got the chance to have that meeting.
But some tenants met her.
Yes. She decided who she was going to meet.
But you heard she met some tenants.
I heard she met some tenants. Okay. So I remember going to the office to ask her that, look, I haven't...
You met her personally?
Yes, I went to the office.
Okay, and you asked her?
And told her that I haven't had the chance to meet and that I had issues. Even if, and at one point I even wrote to her that of all the letters you're writing to us at the factory, come to the factory and see for yourself. Whether when you tell me that I want you to move in 6 months, whether it's possible. Or come and see what we do.
So your meeting with her, how did it end?
I don't even want to go there. It ended up her saying all manner of things, and I just...
Were you rude to her?
No, why will I be?
So why did she say all manner of things?
So her point was the trade fair had been run down by the tenants and that we are responsible for the collapse of the trade fair. I cannot be responsible for the collapse of trade fair. When they didn't have light, I brought a transformer to bring light back to the trade fair.
So this meeting you had with her
it was very hostile.
Ended in bad blood?
So not necessarily.
But hostile. Who else was at the meeting?
I went with my sister and my partner, Felicia Kufo.
Eventually,
even Felicia went there and she was very rude to her. So
okay,
eventually,
so Agnes Edu was by herself?
Yes.
In her own office?
In her
so it was 3 of you?
Yeah, I mean, my office and where her office is just a walking distance.
Okay, so there were 3 of you in this meeting?
Yes.
And you couldn't resolve anything?
The end of it all was that when I went back, I wrote to her again that please come and visit our factory to see what we do and to see whether or not these things you're saying, whether it's possible. She didn't show up. We never got to meet her. So eventually, the only option was you go to court. Go to court and let the court determine whether or not you are a bona fide tenant at the trade fair or not. That was it. So eventually, the thing was, why do you sue government?
So you went to court with the injunction?
I went to court with other tenants.
Yes,
look,
but your application to the court was an injunction.
There are tenants like Eyewitness. There are tenants like Mr. Yemo. Mr. Yemo has been at the trade fair for 40 years. 40 years.
Doing what? What does Mr. Yemo do?
He does a cold store. He has a big cold store that he operates. He has been doing that business there for 40 years. 40? And you know what?
How old is he?
He's pretty old.
Okay.
You know what? They still have this 2014 letter. We're going to redevelop the trade fair. We are not going to pay you compensation. We're not going to, so you get out. But this guy's lease, is 40 years ago. How do you use the 2014 letter that you wrote as justification for a lease that is 20 years? Why won't you want to look at the lease that he got 40 years ago?
Yeah, but the Trade Fair Authority is a continuum. So if they give you a lease and they are doing something else, they can change the lease. They have power to do that.
You see, that's what I'm saying. They have power to do anything they want.
No, not anything they want.
No. You said they have power to do it.
To change the lease,
but I'm saying that what they do not have power to do is to commit an act of illegality.
Precisely,
you don't get me to come and invest money at a place. And when it suits you, you come and say, oh, we are going to redevelop the trade fair. After I have invested all my lease, after I've invested money, after you have given me the opportunity to build a factory, you supervise the factory and built it. And I hear in 2014, you told me I wanted you to do temporary structures. What is temporary structures? One that lasts 1 week?
Okay,
or one that lasts 2 years?
Just explain this letter to us. Then we'll go back to the video and see.
Which letter is that?
This letter I have is from your letterhead, Color Planet.
No, what is the date?
It's August 17, 2018.
Okay.
And it's to the Chief Executive.
How many pages is it?
I have 1 page here, so if you have the rest, you can furnish me with it. But it says that we write, and viewers, if you can get me clearly, it says we write to acknowledge the receipt of your notice of intention to recover our factory site, Pavilion Y and R. But you include Pavilion R in this letter, even though you say you haven't built anything there.
Because
it's still your site.
We paid the rent.
So it says on April the 5, 2010, Color Planet Limited applied to the Ghana Trade Fair Company, GTFC, to allocate a plot in the Trade Fair Center for the construction of an office for its operation. Now this 2010, that's what the letter is quoting, yes. That the application was in 2010. Pursuant to our application, we were allocated a plot at Pavilion Y, which we currently occupy, and started construction under the supervision of the trade fair. The first phase of the construction was completed in January 2012, and installation of the first batch of industrial equipment was carried out between 2012 and 2013. Between 2012 and now, Color Planet Limited has invested heavily in the equipment from China, the United States of America, Britain, and India, which have cost it significant sums of money and other resources. Subsequently, in 2014, we applied again to the Ghana Trade Fair Authority, requesting for a plot for the purpose of expanding our offices in 2014, which request was approved on March 8, 2014. However, the site still had about 30-footer containers on it, which needed to be reallocated. It was in the grant of that request in March 2014 that we were for the first time informed that permanent structures should not be built on the plot allocated. We also applied for additional space for the purpose of our warehouse, and which was approved on Pavilion R. On or about September 14, 2017, your office wrote to all tenants of the trade fair, etc. So, Mr. Archer, my question to you is, you are admitting that since 2014, you have been aware, and you say that that's the first time you heard it, that permanent structures should not be built on the plot. So the point you're making is that by the time you got aware of this, you had already built a permanent structure in 2012.
Supervised by the trade fair.
Yes.
And then when now they demolish the factory, they do not want to look at the 2010 agreement, which led to the birth of the permanent structure. They look at 2014 on Pavilion R, which has no structure on it.
I get it. But you are saying that in 2014, you became aware that permanent structure
I became aware in respect of Pavilion R.
But you said permanent structure should not be developed on the trade fair.
I'm saying that in 2014, this letter you're talking about is in respect of the expansion.
Yes.
So I'm telling you that we became aware
that you shouldn't do permanent structures.
That they will not permit
permanent structures.
But
this is 2014 under NDC.
Yes.
And that's
so
when you became aware.
Yes.
Okay.
So
what did you do about
stating
it?
Our case, one of the things that I said was that our case is that if the trade fair knew that they were one day going to develop a master plan in which they may recover and or demolish structures, they should have informed us in 2010. So you don't...
They didn't. They informed you in 2014.
Yes. And our agreement...
You had done your structure already.
We had done our structure already.
So there has to be a discussion.
So there had to be a discussion. And
a compensation.
And that is all we wanted.
A discussion and a compensation.
An impression has been created that
you insisted on staying there.
You don't want to leave. You want to obstruct government redevelopment of the trade fair. Paul, I asked for two things. I said, listen, as far as I'm concerned, these letters you're writing to me, in respect of Pavilion, I do not agree with you. Because one, my structure is not in 2014. My structure, which is my factory, was 2010. So if you want to address me on 2010, do so. But don't come and talk to me about a structure that I haven't built, a structure that we didn't move forward with the transaction, and you use that as a justification to demolish an existing structure whose roots are in 2010.
So I get the point. So your point is that in 2010 you went in and the trade fair supervised... So let me give the narration whether it's correct.
Not to cut you short. So I asked for two things.
I have your court letter here, so I see what
I asked for two things. If you think that the site that I've occupied, which I've invested so much money in, if you think that the business that you are bringing here is so important that I have to be ejected from this place, having seen all the investment, obviously they didn't care. They didn't even want to see the investment. They didn't want to even enter the factory to see what we do and what is there. As we speak until the demolition, they said they've gone there. As we speak, until the demolition, that woman had never set foot in our factory.
Okay, hold on. Let me give the narration of what you are saying. So you came in 2010. You got a lease. The lease permitted you to put up structures, which you did.
Supervised by the
Trade Fair Authority. 2014, Trade Fair Authority says we are doing redevelopment. We have to move.
No. So after 2014, I then applied for expansion.
Extra
and
space.
that expansion is on a completely different location.
Yes, I get that.
Of the trade fair.
And there they told you that we will be doing redevelopment. Yes. So on this new one, don't put in any permanent structure.
And I didn't build that.
Yes, and your concern is that you are not insisting that you want to be at the trade fair. But given that the trade fair had led you to put up permanent structures and they want you to move, there has to be an arrangement of how you leave, especially compensation, which is clear in your court letter. That's all you were saying. That's your
two things. And I never got to get anyone to listen to us. Trade fair's point is, get the hell out. We're not interested in paying you compensation. We will not pay you compensation. And in fact, at some point, they were even making it look like we are illegal tenants. We had started hearing words like squatters at the trade fair. So, Paul, I heard McDan here.
He tried to talk to you, but he says you didn't talk to him.
Yes, so he said two things. And I want him to listen very carefully.
I don't know whether he's listening.
No, I want him, if you know him, so you can tell him.
Okay.
Paul, he said that we had a meeting in his office and we had a meeting at my factory.
Yes.
On that day of the meeting, I even asked him to go and see inside. He did it.
The one at your factory?
Yes.
But why did you have the meeting that you wanted him to go and see?
Inside my office.
Your office in the factory?
In the factory.
So you wanted him to see the production?
Just the factory, the share equipment and the whole operation. And sometimes when they're talking, you think they have no idea what is inside there.
Okay.
So what I told Magda, and that meeting was organized by a mutual friend who was worried that the way it was going, it was important for the two of us to sit down. So all this talk about, oh, I went to sit down with him and I was talking to him and he was talking court. McDan was the one who told me to keep the case in court. Even if he was going to talk to the board, I should keep the case in court. And but
how can we believe you on this one? Because he gave us a different account.
Did you believe him on when he said?
I'm just saying that there's two accounts. So you can give your account, but his account was that.
You're already saying, how do you believe me?
Yes.
And this is how you believe me. I have two witnesses. One witness is his own witness. The second witness is Felicia Kofo, which is my sister and my partner. Now, let me tell you something. The meeting I had with McDan in his office and in his house had nothing to do with trade fair and my project. McDan and I were pursuing a business together in 2017, 2018. He said he had the government links, I had the technical capability to pursue some projects, and so when I went to his house, and to his office, I went there as business partners. I never went to his house to go and talk to him about the trade fair. So when he's talking, and he wants to start revealing...
Let me understand this. So you are the trade fair. You're having difficulty with the trade fair. Trade fair is having difficulty with you. You're having another separate meeting with the chairman of trade fair. And you want to convince us that in that meeting, the issue about your problem with the trade fair doesn't come up.
I'm saying that I went to the trade fair. When I even went to McDan's place, I wasn't alone. There was also a third party in that meeting. I did not go to McDan in his office to go and discuss trade fair matters.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's difficult to imagine how
it can be difficult for you. It's okay.
And trade fair doesn't come up. Didn't you want to solve your problem?
It's difficult for you. I was in court, and I was very comfortable with that.
Okay.
Okay.
But when you talked about this court matter, which meeting was it?
Hold on. So I'm saying that the meeting that took place in McDan's office, which he was mentioning to you,
said 2 meetings, yes,
had nothing to do with trade fair. Believe it or not.
I get it. So the meeting that was in your office was about trade fair.
Yes.
But the other
organized
meeting,
by a mutual friend, a third party.
Yes, I get it. But the other meeting in his house had nothing to do with trade fair.
And in his office had nothing to do.
Which meeting came first?
So this meeting came last, the meeting in my factory. What he said basically was, okay, I'm going to organize, having seen, now I'm convinced about, now I understand what you're saying. I'm going to convince a board meeting immediately, and I think that it is fair that you become part of the redevelopment.
He said that too.
Now, since McDan left, I never heard from him again.
Okay,
I have never spoken to him.
So the last meeting was the one in your office.
So please, let me explain to you. So to say that he met me in his office and he met me in my office and I was still talking court, that is not true. The two of us do business together. The meeting we had in his office was on a completely different issue.
I get that.
And tell him.
And the second meeting was in your office.
And please tell him that if he wants us to reveal the details of those meetings.
Which meeting?
The one in his office and the one in his house. And the things he said, we can do so. Because I had never any intention to bring up those meetings. If he wants us to go into the details of it, and the things he said about certain people he's doing business with in this country, if he wants,
I don't want to hear that one. I'm not sure.
I'm not asking for you to hear it. I'm just telling you because you hosted him.
Yes, I did.
You brought him to your show, so I'm telling him, not you.
But the two of you are
can decide not to hear it. That's okay.
You are saying the same thing. So we
are not saying the same thing.
You are.
I'm saying to you that he lied when he said that we had 2 meetings on this issue and all I was talking about was court. In all those 2 meetings,
we should play that tape because I'm not so sure. if you have that tape, let's get it again and clear, because I get the impression, viewers, that Mr. Ramond Archer and Mr. Macaulay are actually saying the same thing.
No, we're
about
not saying the same
discussing the issues about the trade fair, and Mr. Macaulay said he assured Ramond Archer that he will be part of the trade fair redevelopment, which he has confirmed. Let's have the tape if it's ready. Let me know if it's ready, and let's have the tape.
So Paul, at the end of it, this issue, he actually said in that meeting, and I think that at that time, it was a fair statement. He said to me, you are already in court.
Yes.
I cannot tell you that go and remove the case from court. Keep the case in court. What I can do, I will try to do.
Yeah.
Eventually, he said his hands are tied.
Okay, the tape is ready? Is the tape ready now? Okay, so let's hear Macaulay. Please give me sound.
Ran to court. We did not go to court. Instead of coming to sit with us to discuss things, he ran to court. The CEO engaged all the tenants. They had a deba and invited everybody to bring your plan. Ramond Archer did not come forward. I personally met him twice. He was in my office. I went to his office. I took the time and went to his office and asked, what do you want me to do for you, though you are in court? But he kept talking about court. And I asked him, do you still want to be in court? He said, yes, since it's in court, what can we do? Pay me for everything and I will leave the place. You see, there's something called rules of engagement. Leadership is a tough thing. It's a tough task. And you have to be a strong leader. We have to do what we call play by the rule. We cannot let others are playing outside the rule. And we all have to know that you play by the rule, there are consequences. That if you do the wrong thing, you will be dealt with. For 2 years, trade fair is running up and down in court.
So, yes, you heard him.
So that's it.
Yeah, so he said you met twice.
We met twice.
Yes.
And I'm saying that's a lie.
And I said that, but you met twice. You're saying you met, but
he
one of
wanted
the
to
meetings,
engage us on the trade fair issue.
Yeah.
And we met twice, one in his office and one in my office.
Okay, so your clarification is that one of the meetings had nothing to do with trade fair.
Yes.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with trade fair. It was a business the two of us were pursuing together at the time.
Okay.
So, and if you want the details of that out, I'm ready to get it out because it's all documented.
Okay, no problem. So now the second meeting was the one in your office.
The second meeting
was about this matter.
Was about this matter.
Yeah.
Put together by a mutual friend who was very concerned about what was going on and the fact that the trade fair was not listening to me. So eventually, it was a Saturday.
But it's good that he came to your place as a chairman of the board. He was showing.
He went to look at the pitch. I think he's doing some beautiful pitch.
Yes, at the Labadi Town Park. Really
so
beautiful.
I went there. And then together we drove to the trade fair.
To your
place.
We
had a meeting for like.
You drove together with him?
No, I was in my car.
Okay, and he came with you. Okay.
He came with, together with a third party.
But do you see that for the chairman to do that was showing that he really wanted to help?
No, I'm not saying he was wrong, but I'm saying that it is completely unacceptable that he mischaracterizes the meeting and the contents of it. One is that he ran to court, and whilst I was talking to him, he kept saying court. That is not what happened.
So this second meeting, how did it end?
It ended very nicely with a promise that he was going to get back to me and that he was going to convene a board meeting because of the fact that I had shown him at my factory and that he will get back to me immediately. He never did up to today. We're talking about last year.
Did you tell him that they should pay you compensation and you will leave?
I said to him that all I wanted to do was to sit down with Trade Fair for two things. One, if it is so necessary, because you see, they're using 2014, first of all, to tell the world that you're a squatter and that we warned you and that you didn't listen. So first of all, that has to be established. That is a lie. Second, if by all means the foreign investment that you are bringing to this country is so important that Ramond's factory has to leave, my request was, can you accommodate me in the design?
Yes.
Whatever the design is.
Yes, but they've answered that in the affirmative, haven't they?
No.
They have refused to get.
Why would I go to court then and ask for the same relief?
Yes. But
if everything that McDan is saying is true, why would I go to court and ask for the same relief if it had been offered to me? Does this make sense?
Okay, let me read what you went to court.
The other thing, I can tell you.
You asked for 3 things. You wanted a perpetual injunction restraining the trade fair from evicting you from the premises that you occupy. That's
based on the mischaracterization.
Yes. Then you also wanted an order directing the trade fair to pay you compensation for evicting you from the site.
Yes.
So that your concern is not the eviction, you wanted to be paid compensation. And you also wanted general damages paid.
Yes.
Okay, so you
based on the fact that, like I told you, if Trade Fair knew way back in 2010 that they were going to go and they were going to redevelop in 2014, then they should have told me before I built my factory. I would have gone somewhere else to build it. So you come afterthought and you come and say, okay, now I want you to leave. I'm not paying compensation. Get out of here in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and that's it. So I said, if you, in the event that you cannot accommodate me on the redevelopment, can you kindly pay me compensation? First, I need to uninstall all this equipment, bring engineers in. Second, I need to go buy a new place or rent a new place.
How much time did you need to do that? Did you communicate that to them? How much time you needed to do that?
I wrote, not just communicate, I wrote to the chief executive.
How much time did you need?
I told her, you come and let's sit down. Let's go through everything and we can all see the enormity of work here, the enormity of work that we need to do to even move the factory. She declined. I'm telling you that after the day of demolition, she had never set foot in my factory.
And you say that you went to court not to be hostile and antagonistic, but you went to court because you were not getting a hearing.
I went to court because I was being threatened with eviction every day. Today, they come and collect rent. The next day, they want to evict you. When they need money, when this woman came to...
Let's have a look at the factory as well down. That's as Ramond gives a narration. Let's have a look at the factory.
When the chief executive came to Trade Fair, she embarked on what she called revenue mobilization.
Yes.
Paul, these same people whose factory has and buildings have been demolished, from Sanyo to Elagbe to Mr. Yemo's factory, the tenants there gave her 1 million cedis in record time, so they can pay.
What was it for?
So we paid them rent, so they could pay the workers, and we were all excited about the fact that somehow we want the trade fair to develop. But what we don't want to do is what he said to you, that one person has to be sacrificed for 1,000 people to benefit. By the way, if you take 1,000 people to benefit and you sacrifice one person, is it still 1,000? It's 999. Why do we have to destroy somebody so that other people can benefit?
I think the relationship and the negotiation broke down between the two of you.
Nothing. There was no negotiation. They would not even give us the chance to sit on the table and negotiate.
So you are not the only one whose factory has been demolished?
No. The lady next to me, look, that woman had a letter from George Bush, the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Telling her how amazing her factory is, giving training to young people who get employable skills and go out there to do share barter for export. The U.S. government built the road that the government took excavators. They took excavators and dug trenches across the road just because they don't want me to access my factory. But that road was built by the U.S. government.
Let's talk about the politics. If it's not just you, why are your supporters saying that this is political?
It was because in all this while, you know, Paul, I told you certain things before. The demolition.
Yes, you did. You complained once to me that they had dug around
they came and dug trenches. Whilst the injunction was pending, they came and dug trenches across the factory. We couldn't take raw materials in. We couldn't take anything out.
Yes.
That became a matter of contempt, which we filed before the court. And all of these things were happening. I spoke to you about it. I never really wanted to talk about this. I wanted to play by the rule within the court system. At the end of the day, we get thrown out there. You have gone to take government land. I had Magdan here. You take government land. This is not this is not prudent investment. Why do you take government land and build?
Why is it being said that it's political when it's not just you?
Two things. One point. See, as we speak now, Magdan, you heard about Terminal 1?
Yes.
Terminal 1 was built with taxpayers' money. He has 15 years rent to renew every 24 months.
Have you seen his contract, by the way? Are you quoting from his contract?
I'm quoting from the position from the aviation minister when he appeared before Parliament. That he has, and it's renewable every 2 years. Paul, Do you think it will be fair? And I hear he's going to do a project with the U.S. government, U.S. military. Do you think it will be fair that 1 month to McDonald's contract, the renewal, somebody comes and say, 15 years, we are not renewing it. Pack your things and leave here. You think that will be fair?
Is that what has happened to you?
In my case, I even built the factory myself. I'm not sitting in a building that was built with taxpayers' money. I built it myself.
So your real issue is that the compensation question didn't find a platform,
and the way
for ventilation. That's really your concern.
And,
that the question
and the
of
fact
compensation
that,
didn't find a platform.
And everything that I feared, that if all these meetings did not take place, if all these negotiations did not take place, we were going to end up being the victim. And that is exactly what.
But they
happened.
actually
the
went
issue
to court.
About the politics.
They went to court. Okay, talk to me about the politics.
The issue about the politics.
Yeah.
Like I said, I never said a word about this issue. I always went to court.
Yeah.
It was what one of the police officers told me that night.
The night of the demolition.
The night of the demolition. I was a little bit hysterical watching the factory being demolished. And by the way, we haven't shown the...
when you are ready, please.
We haven't shown
as soon as it comes, they'll show
the demolition.
Yeah.
You know, because I heard him say that nothing was destroyed. Even in the face of pictorial evidence. Yes. Yeah. Paul, commonsensically. How do you...
They ripped up the roof.
How do you... This is an excavator. Look at the sheer size of the factory. How can an excavator stand on one side, rip up the roof of a building, and the building collapses, and the equipment are not damaged?
He said some part of it was pulled. The small
what
part.
do you think? You've seen the videos.
Yeah, I saw your... I told him here, Mr. Macaulay, that even the vagaries of the weather upon those equipments will be a problem. So what's the way forward for you now, Ramond? Whilst we wait for the tape, and it has to be coming quickly, we are wrapping up. What's the way forward?
So Paul, for me...
I was going to tell you that they went to court to secure an order.
No, you were talking about the politics.
The politics. Why do they... Okay, so
now,
there you are. So Ramond, walk us through this before we come to the politics.
So you saw the video earlier.
Yeah, so this is what?
This is after the demolition. How do you see this with all the equipment buried inside?
Is that you in there?
That's me trying to get my documents and my photos and my books out of the factory out the day after it was demolished. How do you do this to a building? Literally, look at that.
That's an air conditioner.
That's an air conditioner outside.
Outside, yes.
So how do you do
what's
this?
This is still the air conditioner.
This is the whole building down.
Yeah, but this is the air conditioner. So this is inside.
This is inside.
This after the demolition.
Look, you see the whole building now.
But is this after the demolition?
Yes, the whole building now is sitting on the equipment.
Yeah, it's caving in.
Okay, and the reason why the building is not down is because the whole roof is sitting on the equipment. And the brains, look at that. Look at this. And you have a chief executive, look at that. This is our raw materials. Look at where the light is.
Yeah, I can see the thing, the round, the bales.
Look at the building, the roof, sitting on the machines. So everything has caved in. The reason why everything is not even completely down is because these are metals. So the whole roof has people's work.
Oh, this is packaging.
This has people's work we have done.
For them to use for packaging.
Yes. So we are sitting here. This is a factory. You saw it before. You've seen it after. Does this look like something that has not been destroyed? Does this equipment...
He didn't say it hasn't been destroyed.
So sensitive.
Yeah. So once something drops on it like that...
It's so sensitive that even dust, if your machine is
dusty, it can affect its performance.
It can affect its performance. And you do this. Look at that. And we are being told, oh, it was just some small corner. That's the word he used. It was just some small corner that was destroyed.
But these machines look intact, don't they?
Paul, you can say so.
It will appear so, but you're saying it was not so, yeah?
You are saying so. You are saying so.
Yeah.
You seems to be... Look at that. This is people's work sitting on the floor. Look at the building sitting on the machine.
On the machine,
look at people's work.
The roof is on the machine. What's this?
These are scratch cards. People's scratch cards.
Oh, all of that is opened.
Everything is down. Look
so if
inside.
You raise.
Look at the right-hand side here. Look. This is inside the factory. That's the pillar. That is the long pillar in the building that has just been destroyed. Look at the machines. So you sit here and you come and you say, even the engineers. Last week, we managed to get some engineers to have a look at one particular machine we think we can salvage. Even they could not make a determination whether that machine will work again until they go and do an assessment. This is what McDonald says. Nothing was destroyed. It was only the roof. How did he get to the roof without getting to the walls? Look at this. These are scratch cards.
Oh, I was going to ask whether they're newspapers.
No, these are scratch cards. Completed scratch cards.
Where were you when they went to court to seek the order to vacate the injunction?
Oh, I was in court.
You were sitting in the court?
No, my
your lawyer was there?
My manager was there, my lawyer was there.
So you heard the ruling. So you lost that case, didn't you?
You know what? I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay? And my lawyer has, I would like, if it's possible, we can quickly look at the kind of stuff we used to do.
Yeah, they'll show it. They'll show that in a minute. They'll come back and show it in a minute. So what did your lawyer say about this matter?
My lawyer's point is very simple. If you are confident you will win the substantive case,
okay, yeah.
Why do you want to lift the injunction? Look into it. My lawyer says you had an injunction in April 2019. You had a statutory time within which you could appeal. I'm not a lawyer, okay? But based on the explanation he's giving us, he had, I think, 21 days or something like that, within which Trade Fair could have appealed. Trade Fair didn't. They have waited from 2019 up to now and went back to the court with no evidence, no new evidence. That's what my lawyer explained to me. If you want to even go and vacate, you must convince the court that, oh, there was some evidence that was there before which has...
But the judge said that.
No.
Let me read you what the judge said.
Hold on one second. The judge basically said that Trade Fair had told them that there was investors' interest and that we were sort of
undermining that
interest, and that there was some sort of a national interest that was being sabotaged by dependency of the court case. But what is the national interest? Is the national interest not the collection of individual interests?
It is indeed.
So what's the national interest?
But let's our viewers hear what the judge said. He said that, if I may ask, as it stands, will it be fair, this is the judge, will it be fair to maintain the injunction, which is what you had, which has been pending against the Trade Fair, looking at the financial losses the nation is currently facing? That's what the judge said. That your injunction is causing financial losses. Let me finish and then we deal with it. It says, there is no evidence before me that this salient fact was brought to the attention of the courts differently constituted, as a court that gave you the injunction, before the grant of the injunction order complained of. It is my considered view, this is the judge, that since the color planets, Ramond Archer, are not seeking for title to the land, but rather compensation. He said you're not seeking for title, you're seeking for compensation, general damages, and an order compelling the Trade Fair to consider you as part of any future development of the Trade Fair site. It will be fair, the judge says, and convenient to vacate the injunction order, which I accordingly vacate, for the government to go ahead with the facelift of the Ghana Trade Fair Authority for the betterment of the nation, as well as the Ramond Archer should be able to prove their relief aid, something like that. Okay. So the judge said that it will not be fair for him to maintain the injunction because of the national interest. However, he says your damages and all of that can be dealt with.
Paul, you see, like I said, I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, I'm just reading what the judge said.
But I don't think that the law is based on stupidity.
I certainly hope not.
Yeah. I think the law is based on...
But this is what the judge said.
I think the law is based on fairness.
Yeah.
On justness.
But the judge was also talking about fairness.
Hold on.
Yeah.
And in his own word, did Trade Fair prove to them, even in the court, that, oh, we have A, B, C investors who have put money in this project as we speak today?
No, he said something like that. He didn't say, he said...
Oh, I'm saying that did Trade Fair prove... Trade Fair said it to him.
Yeah, they said it to him.
But did Trade Fair prove anything before him to say that Novari has brought investment here? This person has brought investment, but because of the... As I speak
I don't know that.
As I speak to you today, I'm telling you he didn't. They didn't. They didn't. As I speak to you here, the same issue they complained about before the injunction was granted was the same issue they brought before the court. Nothing new.
No, the judge said something else. He said
the judge is basically saying that national interest. So the citizens' interest doesn't matter anymore.
But remember, as soon as this judgment was given, were you not concerned that they might move on?
Thank you. The judgment was given on Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay. Our lawyer, our counsel, told the judge that knowing how vindictive Trade Fair has been to its clients, even with dependency of the injunction, they went to dark things to sabotage the factory.
Yeah.
Knowing what they have been doing, if he lifted the injunction, that was the end. The factory was going to be destroyed, and we were all going to be left stranded.
So your lawyer anticipated this on Wednesday?
The lawyer told him that. In fact, he told him before open court.
He told the judge?
Yes.
Okay.
Then immediately after that, he got a little upset. Our lawyer got a little upset. Immediately he left the court. He filed for an appeal. That was Thursday. Apparently, you have to file the appeal before you file for stay.
Yeah.
So
Friday,
he filed for a stay of execution. All of it, the trade fair was served. So by Friday, we all went home knowing once this had been done,
there's a truce. Yes.
There's a truce. We're going to go on and move forward. Saturday, Sunday night, midnight, is when they went and broke this. What did they say? They said that, oh, they were not served.
With the injunction?
With the injunction. They were not served.
The appeal.
And that,
the stay of execution.
To think, as if to say that if even they had served, they would have obeyed it. Even when the injunction was there, they still went and destroyed and sabotaged the fight. Listen, Paul, let me tell you one thing. There was someone, you didn't show the production.
You have to get me the production video, please. Yeah.
There was one occasion where people were in a church behind my factory. They were worshiping. They took bulldozer and collapsed the church on the worshippers.
It's a different matter, or Sunday night?
Sunday night.
The same night?
Not the same night.
Another
previous night.
How is that related to you?
I'm saying that this is the callousness with which the trade fair is behaving. You collapse a church on worshippers.
You are going to explain to me why it is political, even when it's not just you, because that's
because you brought it. So now listen. So, so I was a little agitated. So this officer approached me. He said,
the police officer.
The police officer. He said, are you the Ramond Archer? And I said, yes. He says, what do you do? So I was like, what a question. You are here with ammunition and guns, supervising the destruction of my factory, and you're asking me what do I do? He said, oh, the reason he asked is because they told him, so these are some of the products that we do. And we are the only company in Africa now doing this.
So this is a box for Johnny Walker?
Johnny Walker, the premium box, Johnny Walker, black label. We do the red label, we do the pharmaceutical packaging, and the rest. You can get to see that.
Okay, go on, yeah.
So the officer told me that, well, they said that I didn't let some people come to power 2008. So so he wanted to know whether or not
I am
printing. I went to illegally print ballot papers, or that's why they asked them to come and demolish the factory. So it was the first time, even though I had stuff.
What is the relationship? You didn't let some people come to power in 2008. You are not the Lord Chief Justice.
That's exactly what I said.
You are not the electoral commissioner.
But I think you and I have an idea.
Yeah.
I think you and I have an idea, and that made me really sad, even the more, because Paul, assuming that I am NDC, assuming so, can't it be possible for two decent people to belong to NDC and belong to MPP and still see themselves as decent people? Can't we live like that?
We can. And I think that you and McDonald have a relationship that you have to continue.
No.
I think you have to continue. Because,
and I'm telling you,
he appears like
the
a cool
gloves
guy.
are off with me and McDonald.
It shouldn't be.
Because of the things and the lies he peddled here. You see, Paul.
He comes across like a very cool guy.
I know he's your friend. It's okay, but at the end of the day, Paul.
But we should make peace, all of us.
What's the way forward? How do you make peace? Your situation, in fact, even looking at the judges' order, like I said, I hope the law is not founded on stupidity. If the rule is that I can come back, because I'm really upset, Paul, and I'm hurt.
Yeah.
I'm really hurt. If it was not for the support of my wife, my good friends, and the nation, and I want to be really grateful. People that I never even thought calls to sympathize with you. People from all walks of life, across the political divide, come to you and say, this one, I cannot endorse an activity like this. So I just want to like to say thank you to my wife, my mother, my father-in-law, my good friends who have like really made you feel. I got a call from a Nigerian friend who said, we thought this would happen in Nigeria, not Ghana. And I said to him, but this is not Ghana, though. This is not Ghana. This is not
what's the way forward?
So talking about the judges issue as the way forward, he says that I could be compensated, or maybe an allowance made for me to participate.
In
That's what I'm saying.
The new trade fair.
The law is not set in stupidity. If the factory is down,
The factory has been reduced to rubbles. What participation are we talking about again?
Yeah, but in there he talks about compensation as well.
Paul, this is not just about, and the other day I heard Dan say here, oh, maybe it's not 10 million, maybe it's this. I've written to Trade Fair several times, and they know. And I think it's out of guilt that they never wanted to visit my factory to see what I was doing there, because they knew that if they did, they would feel guilty in what they were trying to do. And people have lost their livelihoods, and we're here on television still trying to demonize them on television.
Let me read Bafo-Bonny's text messages. Mr. Bafo-Bonny is our common friend, but on this occasion, he's not very happy with me. Mr. Bafo-Bonny is also the chief of staff of President Mahama when he was vice president. Those of you who don't know him. And he's also the founder of Radio Gold 90.5, where I worked before.
I'm not sure he's the founder.
Well, he was the chief executive for many years. Yeah. Okay. So Mr. Bafo-Bonny says that Paul Adom-Otchere at his diabolic best again. You don't want Ramond Archer to talk. Why? Why do you believe McDan? Why are you interrupting and interrupting and interrupting? I pray you build a factory of this magnitude and get it demolished. You will see how it feels. This mustn't happen to any Ghanaian. A factory that has employed over 100 Ghanaians. McDan is your friend, so you think you are in good hands. Okay. Well, I don't have anything to say about this. I just wanted viewers to.
Sometimes
I just want the viewers to see his views.
It's very painful.
Yeah, I think he's.
I mean, the other day I heard one of the MPP communicators on radio. What was he saying? That even the land that was given to me, I rented it to Indians.
Which Indians? Or some of your IT people who work there?
No, I mean, like I rented it and I was taking big rent for it. Like, Paul, I'm trying to keep my sanity after this situation. And what people want to do is to go on radio and say that I rented the land. So maybe he's seeing the expatriates there and he's probably thinking, typical, maybe this is not his. These are my staff. We have staff from 3 countries and they do amazing work. I build this thing with bank loans and reinvestment, working elsewhere, putting it back in. So to see someone destroy it like that and still have the audacity to sit on television and just...
I'll leave it here, Ramond. I wish you the best, and I will be following the court case and see what happens. But I also hope sincerely that your relationship with Dr. Macaulay is picked up, and hopefully that can solve
that
this problem.
tell you is off. I can tell you.
There's a lot of things that God can do.
He said here that Ramond is my friend.
Yes, he did. Yes, he said
that. A friend will tell you, Ramond, this has happened. I think you should take your equipment out. I'll give you 1 week, 2 weeks to destroy it. Ramond, I think we should find a way to look at this. Ramond, this is how I think we should do it. You don't go and destroy my factory midnight.
He condemned that.
He was responsible. He said the buck stops with him.
Yeah, but he condemned that. He did condemn that.
Paul, he didn't condemn that.
He said Sunday night.
No.
Because he
Paul,
said it could have been done at any other time.
Paul, I can tell you. You can play it back. Yeah. He said to you here that we could have done it during the daytime.
Yes, he said that.
Yeah. So the fact that it happened in the night is probably sheer coincidence. He's not saying it was wrong that it was done. He said we could have done it daytime.
I get your point. Yes, he said that. Okay.
Yeah, we could have done it daytime. So even at that point, he was still relishing in the destruction.
We'll reach you again in a month from now to see what the update is on this one. Ramond.
So please,
really sorry about this.
Tell them that it's enough to destroy the factory, but it is worse to try to still torment people, lie about rent, take rent from, assuming I have a problem with you on your land in Kaswa. Then I come and destroy your house in Cantonment. And I say, oh, but we have a rent issue and I told you this in Kaswa, so I've destroyed your house in... And there's a man who comes out here and say, perhaps I made a wrong judgment in investing at the trade fair.
No, he didn't say that. I have to leave it here. My phone is buzzing. A lot of senior important people are calling me. I don't know whether they don't know the show has not ended, but at 11:05, we thank you for staying along with us. I hope you got the narrative. This is a very sensitive matter. And so let's think through it and make our comments as sensible as it can be. I'll read all the comments tonight. Thanks for watching and good night.